Thank you. Yeah. Good evening. This is the regular board meeting of September 18th, 2023 of the Board of Park District Commissioners for the Lake Bluff Park District here in Lake County, Illinois. It's now 6:31 as we start our meeting. May I have a roll call, please?
Commissioner Greenfield.
Here.
Commissioner Lane. Here. Commissioner Raymore.
By video.
Commissioner Reeder. Commissioner Walsh. Commissioner Weber.
Here.
President Beeler.
Here. What I'd like to do first is, unfortunately, this is a bad season for COVID, colds, and other things. We have our Executive Director, John Beeler, who will be joining us by remote tonight, as well as Commissioner Sue Raymore, who also is under the weather and joining us by video as well. Could I have a motion, please, that those two individuals, Commissioner and Executive Director, can join us by remote tonight?
Second.
Can I have a roll call in there, please?
Commissioner Greenfield.
Yes.
Commissioner Lane.
Yes.
Commissioner Raymore.
Yes.
Commissioner Weber.
Yes.
President Beeler.
Yes. And next, then to move on to the approval of the agenda for this evening. If I could have a motion to approve the agenda for this evening's matters.
So moved.
Second.
Roll call, please, Marcia.
Commissioner Greenfield.
Yes.
Commissioner Lane.
Yes.
Commissioner Raymore.
Yes.
Commissioner Weber.
Yes.
President Beeler.
Yes. Next is our statement of visitors. It's anyone who's on Zoom tonight or in attendance personally to talk to the board for a period of up to 3 minutes about any matters that pertain to the Lake Bluff Park District. There are no visitors tonight. Is there anybody via remote, Jeff, who would like to speak?
There are no comments on Zoom.
Thank you. We'll move on to our consent agenda next. And everybody has this. This is on page 11 of our packet for this evening. Our consent agenda consists of the minutes of August 21st, 2023, regular board meeting, the minutes of August 23rd, 2023, for a special board meeting, the minutes of September 11th, 2023, special board meeting, the invoice schedule for ACH payables for a period of August 9th through September 13th of 2023, and the purchase card ratification. So those are letters A through E. Before I ask for a motion, is there any comment, questions?
Yes. Well, if someone else can go first, because I can't find mine, if someone else has something.
Okay. Anybody else?
So mine's in the September 11th minutes. It says, I've got to find where it is. I remember kind of what it says, but I've got to find exactly. It's silly, but it's when we were discussing the app, I was trying to say, and maybe I said it wrong, but I was trying to say that if someone was in line, not paid for online, because we can do that now. And so what I was trying to say is, like, if someone was in line, they would be doing it in real time, you know, and they would actually beat the person behind the desk, like that the registration is in real time. So it's a silly thing, but I don't want to, you know, that's a feature we already have. You can already make the reservation online. So I just wanted to clarify that it was more than that. That's all. So, okay, can I make a motion to amend that tiny little piece of the agenda, and then I will say the whole consent agenda is okay if everyone else is okay with everything.
And just one other thing, on the same page, 24 of the September 11th minutes, under the outdoor pickleball tennis courts, that Lake Forest Recreation Center is considering building pickleball courts at Deer Path Park, not in partnership with Deer Path.
Oh, at Deer.
At Deer Path.
Okay.
Or near the Deer Path School, I should say. We're not entering into a partnership to build with them. Or no.
Oh, no.
Okay. And the only other item that I had was on page 20, which is part of the August 23rd, 2023 special board meeting. And this is under the pool options, cost and discussion, paragraph that starts next. Mr. Lee said that an ADA accessible bathroom is needed. We already have an ADA accessible bathroom. So, I guess the best way to put it is that the ADA accessible bathroom, is important rather than is needed. We already have one. But instead of replacing the existing bathroom, they're going to change the location of the door. Other than those, anybody else have anything further? Seeing as none, may I have a motion, please, then, to approve the consent agenda with items A through E?
So moved. Second.
Roll call, please.
Commissioner Greenfield,
Yes.
Commissioner Lane. Yes. Commissioner Raymore,
yes,
Commissioner Walsh,
Yes.
Commissioner Weber.
Yes.
President Fluger.
Yes. All right, next up is finance with a month-to-date and year-to-date financial report and summary form.
Board of Commissioners, with Finance Superintendent Business Services, the month of August, month-to-date, year-to-date financials, the revenues, especially property taxes, came in under budget. This was already made up for last week with the property tax disbursements from Lake County. So we are, again, well ahead, but just 1 month later. Expenses, it came in under budget by approximately $22,500. Year-to-date, we are still tracking fairly close to the budget with the revenues, and under budget in regards to the expenses. The estimated or the potential year-end surplus would be nice if it were $900,000, but it won't be. It will still be positive, and I think we will be happy with that in the next 3 months. Also, I should say that at the end of this month, we will be starting the full speed ahead with the budget for 2024. There are a lot of items to consider, including the stormwater fleet, which we received the first large one just today, and I will share that with you so you can see it what it's like. And of course, your input, and then the Finance Committee will be meeting soon to introduce the new member and to start the budget.
How much did the stormwater assessment come
About $9,760 for 1 quarter for 666 Rockland Road.
in? That's,
$9,760.
that's interesting, because I thought that our total bill was not much more than that. That there was, because they had assessed.
Yes, so this was just received today. I have
Yes.
not reached out to the village with Noah and John as well to determine exactly what this included.
Yeah, and I think we should note that we also do not, I don't think that the credits have been applied yet. So we still need to potentially work that out with the village.
Okay, yes, because they had gone through, because they had looked at all of the hardscape as well as the potential water runoffs that we have, and if you recall, John, there was a much reduced number from what was originally presented, so,
Yes.
okay.
What is 666 Rockland Road?
That's technically the address of the park maintenance facility, which is, I'm a little surprised that that's listed on that building, and not
Yeah,
255.
right, that's why I'm asking. That seems
Yeah, that's the park
odd.
maintenance building.
Yeah, okay.
And so I'm proud just to mention how this can affect the budget a fair amount next year, and how it's going to take a fair amount of work to determine exactly what this includes and what will be required next year.
Let's follow up on that conversation. Anything else for Wolf's presentation? No? Okay. May I have a motion to accept the financial reports as presented? So moved.
Second.
Roll call, please.
Commissioner Greenfield,
Yes.
Commissioner Lane. Yes. Commissioner Raymore,
yes,
Commissioner Raymore, Commissioner Walsh.
Yes.
Commissioner Weber,
Yes.
President Taylor.
Yes. On the verbal communications, President's report, nothing to say from me. Staff?
I would just start quickly by saying the staff reports start on page 4 of the packet, and I don't really have anything to add to that. So I'll throw back to Jim and Noah, who are in the room, to see if they have anything.
I would just say that I know we're going to be talking about the foundation, but the Jazz and Jokes event was on Saturday. I know John, the day that he was here, helping out a little bit, but stayed away from everybody with his COVID. But from everyone that we heard from John Hirsch, the foundation president, and other individuals from the foundation, it sounded like it was pretty successful for a first time. So that it sounds like they grossed a little over $12,000 for that event. So great job for everyone. This week, this coming weekend, we have here on the property the fireworks and the Lake Bluff celebration here at the Park District.
And that starts at 5 or 30?
I think it's at 5.
It's actually from 4 to 8.
4 to 8, okay. Food trucks available,
Mm-hmm.
and cookies for everybody, it sounds like. Fireworks at 7:30.
Yep.
what time are the fireworks?
7:30.
Okay,
Well, yes, dark till 6:55 now, so they're waiting until dark fully settles in, and boy, that's nice because we get home by 8:30.
That's in competition with homecoming this weekend, just so everyone knows.
Oh, okay. All right,
I'll let Jillian from the library know that. She's the one who puts on the event.
Okay.
You know, we just host it.
Right,
So I'll mention to her in the future, she should really look into.
yeah, and homecoming's a week later kind of than it usually is, I think. It's usually last weekend, at least based on my memories, my photos. So.
But I'll mention that to her. So in future planning, to try to avoid that weekend.
attorney report, which we have none tonight. Finance administration and future planning committee.
I'm going to defer my time to Paul to discuss a presentation that Piper Sandler had regarding a review of some existing debt and resources with respect to the pool.
So we met on Thursday, we had a Zoom meeting with Eric Anderson of Piper Sandler, as well as one of his colleagues. And Eric presented, and I don't know if it's been sent to all the members yet, he made a presentation similar to what he's made in the past, but bringing up to date how much, well, two things really. Number one, how much non-referendum taxable debt we would now be able to take out given the current interest rate environment. So with interest rates going up, we have a growth in the amount of money we can take, the amount of headroom, so-called headroom, that we have every year. And whereas before we were faced with, I think, having, maybe $7,000 in available debt this year and very little in the coming 5 or 6 years or even longer, we now have more in the coming few years. And then once we get rid of all of our, assuming we got rid of all of our debt by 2032, then we would come in at somewhere around $600,000 annually in available headroom that we could borrow. He also talked about strategies using operational debt, so money we would be taking from the operating budget, where Eric was assuming that we would keep the debt payments level from where they are today.
those payments will end they go down after 2026, and then after 2029, they go down further. So Eric gave us a picture of how much operational debt we could potentially assume and what that would mean to our overall position. I think, the first thing Eric said was he congratulated the park district on improving our finances. And the last time when we had a rating, when we were downgraded in our rating, he would now expect us to be, well, we already know we have a positive outlook with Standard & Poor's. And how many years we have to go with that before we get upgraded? I think it's 2 years, if I remember correctly. But he said the finances are in totally different shape. Certainly the golf course is something he mentioned as being a big factor in turning our finances around, where that was a drain on Park District finances, and now it's not a drain at all. And it's a positive, has a positive effect. So, the trust of it was he was pointing out the flexibility we have and how we can do things differently and how we can structure things differently to handle some of these larger projects. The pool and the beach are the ones that we're mainly thinking about, I would say. And looking at the pool repair cost as one, potential expenses for the beach are the second area. I think some of the issues that we'll have to discuss, and I think this is for all of the committees, certainly the finance committee, but facilities and programs, parks and beach. While the finances are better, we don't have unlimited amount of resources. And one of the things, of course, is that since the initial estimate of what the pool repair program would cost, that's gone up significantly. Eric was also looking at something we have to look at as a park district and staff, is how much of the pool repair is ADA related and can be taken from our special rec budget. And Eric was assuming $500,000, and John came back and said, well, it looks like more like $30,000. So those are numbers, and Wolf was at the meeting, John was at the meeting, along with me. So putting those new numbers together and really finding out what it is that it's going to cost us, figuring out what we're going to do with the beach and how, over what period of time. Those are things that I think in the next couple of months we all have to be looking at very, very carefully, so that we can then look at the numbers and say, all right, this is what we want to do. What can we do? What do we have the finances for? And again, the one thing, and I'm going to bring it up in discussions tonight. But when we first had the discussion over the pool repair, we're looking at a $2 million price tag, not a $2.7 million price tag. It was really, and those are somewhat old numbers now that need to be brought up to date. We're going to have to put away a certain amount of money. We're going to have to tuck away a certain amount of money and just say we can't spend this on anything else. In order to make sure that we can cover things that we know we need covered, we don't necessarily know what they are, but we know we'll have them. So I think I said in one of my emails to you, Jennifer, a lot of moving parts. Piper Sandler, I think, does a really good job in presenting the numbers in a clear way and in pointing out the flexibility we have in structuring things. but ultimately, we're the ones who are gonna have to really pin down what it is we wanna do, when we can do it, how much it's gonna cost to do. So, and that was the thrust of the meeting. Piper Sandler is ready, of course, to help us in any way they can. Financing costs are another area. They're double what they were when we had his last report. Not 2% a year, it's gonna be 4% a year. And, you know, depending on who you listen to, the Fed's gonna raise interest rates again. So those are all issues that have to go in, you know, I don't have to tell you, there are gonna be a lot of numbers and so on. I think what's really important, as I've been saying and asking, Eric made a presentation relative to outside financing, but we need to pin down, and I feel very strongly about this, Wolf, as you know, we need to pin down what our internal budget is, how much money we're gonna have after we take out the 25% fund balances that we want to keep in the general and rec fund, and, you know, how much we can generate internally on top of what we can generate through debt. And then try to put the package together that makes the most sense for the Park District and Park District community. And
So a good idea to bring him back again and have him present to everybody on the board, maybe after the finance committee meets? Or-
I think that's a little premature.
Okay.
I mean, I've looked at the report, it's not like there's, you know, a lot of money to go around for the next
Okay.
7 years.
All right.
I mean, the general summary I get from looking at it is we still need to be rather judicious. You know, essentially we can borrow $1.1 million until 2031.
Okay.
So that doesn't really cover much of the pool, and God forbid something else should happen. I think it's almost like a rainy day fund, rather, I mean, don't get me wrong, I think we still should be planning for what we can do much further down the road, but I don't think it's necessary to bring someone in right now for a fallback on this one. Yes, I think just taking a look through the packet, you'll see it's better, but not like awesome. You know, I think it's the general consensus I give it.
So with the updated numbers for the pool and the pool repair.
things can be structured, and Eric talked about structuring debt where you could do interest only for the first certain number of years, and then have more of a balloon payment, if you will, in the last years. But I fully agree with Scott. We still have to be judicious. We have to look at the overall picture. How many dollars do we have available? And I don't think we should. I don't think we want to get into a position where we're down, we've got $5 in the bank and we're going to spend $4.75 of it. But I think certainly at the right time, when we say this is what we need to do, then Eric can come in and help and talk to us about potential structure. The offset grant is another item. It's $600,000. It's a lot of money.
Right.
And again, I think we have to look at what we can do with or without the offset grant.
Good. Thank you for that update. Parks and Beach Committee, we have not met, but anything new that John or Jim, you can add about the North Shore Water Reclamation Project, anything that we just talked about this the other week, I didn't think anything.
Yeah, there's nothing else
Basic
new.
happened, okay. Facilities, but just one other thing too, tomorrow night, the village is going to have a meeting that includes a presentation by Hay and Associates about the ravine. So hopefully we can have somebody present to be able to hear what's going to be happening with the village and their ravine presentation. Facilities and programs?
We have a meeting scheduled for October 12th.
Okay.
Time to be determined still.
Golf committee?
The golf committee is meeting this Thursday, where we're going to review programs, discuss new programs. Driving up here, I saw the kids on the course for the Illinois PGA program that 22 kids were signed up for, which I think is really good attendance for the first year, and we'll be talking with the Illinois PGA about that.
Friends of Lake Bluff Parks, as we mentioned previous agenda, the Jazz and Jokes was a lovely evening and a lot of work went into that. So hats off to everybody on the Friends board for how well that evening went, and that it was successful financially is terrific as well. Lavola, anything from our liaison Sue?
Just a couple things real quick. Yesterday, we had a gathering at the Getz, and we had I'd say about 50 people. It was a party that we had grant money that we had to spend. We were hoping the boardwalk would be completed by then, but as John, you know, it's hung up with the Army Corps of Engineers. So it was a little dicey because it was so rainy, but nobody fell. It was all good. We didn't encourage tours on the boardwalk because some of it was underwater. But it was we had about 30 kids. We did a lot of kids activities. We had appetizers, did most of the partying on a neighbor's lawn because there isn't a lot of open space there, but it was very successful and a lot of good people. And Carolyn Getz's daughter, Sandy Ragsdale, came and spoke about the start of Lavola and how it all started around the Getz. It was kind of a fun day. Then I've been trying to get Lavola and Cliff Miller walking through the ravine. He's had some issues with his family, so we're hoping to be rescheduling that next week. So more to come.
Good, thank you for that. And that's a good grant if it includes money that you have to have a party to celebrate.
Isn't that nice?
Don't we wish all grants went that way? And then commissioners' comments, I would just like to say thank you to everybody on staff as well as to Upland and everything else. The OSLED grant was submitted. Now we just wait until February when they make the announcements. So a long time to sit on pins and needles until then. Anything else from any other commissioners?
The only thing that, and this kind of goes back to actually, it was in the consent agenda, but I was just curious on with what's left of the season, which is basically nothing, although there's still warm weather. Do we have any security at the beach, or what do we have down there now?
Yeah, great question. So security is still at the beach, but not during the weekdays. They will be there until mid-October.
Okay. And they're just there like in the evenings, or?
Yes,
Okay.
they're there from 7 to 1.
Okay, and do we still have signage up, and people are still being careful with the hill, or is there concern the construction people, if they can think about that at all, like people walking down at weird times since there's no one telling people not to?
No, security hasn't reported anything back to staff.
Okay.
We still have signage up, but
Okay.
yeah.
Thanks.
On to new business and action items, and as I just said, the OSLED grant, but we also have a FEMA grant for the lake. Is John, you want to update us on that?
Yeah, John will.
Sure. So as you already mentioned, that the OSLAD grant was submitted last week, which received several letters of support that were included with our final application, and everything is a big process, but everything kind of came together and was submitted. So that looks good. I've already received an email from IDNR today saying that they plan to start going through those and hope to start processing, as early as mid-December. So I don't know if that means they're still, typically, again, they do announce the winners in February. So I don't know if that's still going to be the schedule or if they're going to try to move that up, but I will certainly keep the board posted on that. The other updates of the FEMA BRIC grant, this is one that we have applied for the last 2 years. And this is a grant that would be used for the erosion control down at the beach. And what we've applied for is $3.8 million portion of the work that needs to be done. And AECom has assisted in this grant application each year. It's been rejected the last couple of years, primarily because you need to be have adopted the HMP, or the hazard mitigation plan, which the county does. And so they typically do that, and it's adopted by villages or cities, but not by park districts. So that's the problem with it. So we did talk this, if we wanted to still do this, we could do it as a sub-applicant. So we'd have to have basically the village apply, and we would be the sub-applicant on that application. So that gets around the HMP issue. But this is a 75-25% match. So our match on that is still about $950,000. So I guess I think what we're looking for, from the board here, I think is whether we want to go for this again this year, whether we want to take a year off, and as Paul said, maybe we need to have a meeting and talk more about the priorities and the financing before we apply for it. But they are requiring, we would have to do a new benefit cost analysis, a new BCA, and so AECom can assist with that, but it's going to be $9,560 is what they would charge to complete that analysis and then help apply for the grant. So knowing that we just did the OSLAD, we paid, I think it was about $7,500 to do that process and work with a grant specialist and apply for that. I guess I'm looking for some discussion with the board here, whether we want to move forward on the FEMA grant as well at the same time, or do we want to put that on hold while we pursue the IDNR grant, and then maybe reevaluate whether we come back next year and apply for the beach erosion grant.
Hey, John, just to clarify, what is the total cost of the project, and can you kind of touch base on the matching component of that?
So this was, again, AECom put this together. It was Bill Weaver and Sam Schaefer, the two that I've been working with. And so basically they're taking that 2019 study that we had, which again, all in, there's about probably over $6 million worth of work in there, but they took out the sections that they felt, that would possibly qualify for this FEMA funding. So it is just doing some of those, parts of that plan that from 2000, or that study from 2019, increasing those, some of the breaker, break walls that are out there now, adding some, making some of them longer. And I guess part of the justification is that, in doing it for FEMA, is that we're going to provide some additional protection for infrastructure, which is, the sanitary district building and the roadway. And then kind of the secondary benefit is, the protection of the recreational beach, which is beneficial for us. So that's what, we're doing, sections of that erosion study, and just some of that protection. And then the match is 75% for FEMA, or the government, the federal government. It's actually administered through IEMA. But anyway, and then ours would be 25% match. So our match was about $950,000 for the park district. But this is
okay. So we
3.8 million worth of erosion control.
Okay, so we'd be on the hook for funding, call it $1 million.
Yeah.
Of this, is that right?
Correct.
Okay, I just wanted to clarify that.
And what's the time frame?
This, again, it's, I think that it might be January that these are awarded to be sometime after the new year. And so, and then I think that also is like a 2-year time frame that you have to complete the work.
But we have to do this in conjunction with the village in order to be able to apply for this grant.
We would, and I've, had at least a cursory discussion about this with the village administrator, Drew Urban, who thought that would probably be fine because they were not applying for a FEMA grant this year. And so, we would have to, if we were to move forward with this request, formally, approval, by the village, that we apply for the grant, basically through the village.
I don't know, John, did you hear Nikki's question?
I'm sorry, they were muted for some reason here. I did not hear the question.
So I was just saying, did Drew indicate if they were thinking at all about applying for the FEMA grant next year or anytime soon? Because that could affect our timing as well, I would think then.
He did not. We did not talk about it. This is applying for next year, so the village was not. So that's, and we didn't talk about whether they would be applying for the year after.
Okay.
John, do you know how big the fund is? Like how many dollars worth of funds are available for this in this FEMA grant?
I've heard that it's a lot of money that's coming into it because of the infrastructure money that's available out there. A lot of money. The other problem is that our erosion, what we need it for hasn't been a very good fit. We're trying to make it work for the grant, but it's still not been a very good fit for it.
So even though AECOM would want to work with us to apply for this, and I know you've said this before, there's not a high likelihood of success because of the particular confines, or particular parameters of this FEMA grant and what we're looking to do for erosion of the beach. Is that right?
Yeah, if it was more, directly related to protecting, the sanitary district building, and parking lot and roadway, which it would, but they've already kind of, beefed up some of that erosion control. So, that's more, it's a little less, attributable to our, work with that we would be doing. Ours mostly would be to help protect the beach and the bluff, for our operation and our, property out there. But, that's not as good a fit, to protect the recreational beach or even the bluff.
What's the application deadline?
It is, I think it's October 1st. It's actually coming up in a couple of weeks.
And I'm sorry, I missed, what was the cost that AECOM was charging?
No, it's
It was $9.
$560.
Say that again, John?
$9,060.
Is that, John, this is Sue, is that even doable in 2 weeks? To have AECOM do their?
Yes, they already have a lot of the work from having applied for it the last couple of years, but they would have to do the BCA. And they emailed today that we just have to give them direction pretty quickly here that we're gonna do that.
I think I remember you saying with OSLAD that we get like credit for, applying year after year and that they look more favorably upon us. Is that something that would happen with this one as well?
I'm not sure, with FEMA or IEMA, I don't have as much familiarity with them, so I know that with IDR, that's true, but I'm not sure with this.
And that, I'm just trying to understand that sub-application we have to do with the village, that's separate from the application for the grant.
No,
Or
it's
is
part,
the village still?
yeah, it's actually part of the application. So in order to apply for this, we would have to apply like through the village. So the village would have to be the main applicant and we would be the sub-applicant on this application for the grant. And then if the grant were awarded, it'd be administered through the village. We've done that before, we can make that work because it's the Secretary of State grant for the beach access improvement, the 350,000 grant a few years ago, unfortunately was accidentally written to the village and not the park district. So we had to administer it through the village. It worked fine. We were able to get all the funding, but the village would be the main applicant and we would be the sub applicant. But this would have to be approved by the village board as well.
So we have less than 2 weeks to be able to submit a grant application. You're saying that there's enough information already in hand?
Yeah, because it's
I don't
not,
know.
sure, this is only the pre-application. It's not the full application. So it's, what's due by that date is the pre-application, which is just indicating that we plan to apply for the full, for the full grant.
I'm just trying to remember when we did the committees together, when we were working with the village and the North Shore Water Reclamation and the Park District to come up with a plan of which projects to do. And I do remember there was discussion of, North Shore Water Reclamation paying some of it. And then was there any portion that the village was going to pay in that ad hoc committee? I can't remember off the top of my head, and I was just wondering if anybody can remember.
Yeah, I don't think that.
We asked, because I sat in on those meetings, we had just joined the board, I had sat in on the meeting. And we were trying to get North Shore Water Reclamation District to pay for the larger cost of the project that we had, that had been created for the Park District. And they just said, no, there was nothing that the village, we were not asking the village to be putting anything up for that.
I think there may have been some recommendations in there, but nothing that came to fruition.
I mean, North Shore Water Reclamation did do that, a certain drawing there.
Right.
That they did recognize was their responsibility.
I just wasn't sure if the village had any part in it, because I remember the three were part of the discussion group, and I wasn't sure if anything was.
So John, is the $9,000 even for the pre-application, or the pre-application is something we can do together without incurring the cost?
No, we have to have this benefit cost analysis done in order to do the pre-application. So that's the cost to do that and do the pre-application. They already have the pre-application pretty much put together, but just because we've done it before, so it's the same information got again, but it's just changing it to sub-applicant and doing this BCA.
I'm just, I'm a little concerned because of the short turnaround time and the expense on this, as to whether this is really, and especially because of the unlikely odds for being successful, if this is really a good thing to go forward on.
It's just hard for me to recommend. We've tried it the last couple of years, you know, and without having to put that extra cost out of this, you know, this analysis, it's a little less risk, you know, for us to do it and at least try it. But, you know, knowing that it's going to cost $9,500 and we're already looking at, you know, we've applied for the pool grant, and, you know, we're looking at the finances, it's a little bit, you know, difficult for me to recommend at this time that it's, you know, a really good idea to go forward with it.
Especially since we just got an invoice for $9,500 for stormwater management, so, I don't know, anybody else's thoughts on? I mean,
I'm not head over heels on going into this thing, and so given your reservations and John reservations, I can't really get behind it.
I have an opposite view, just like I feel like, like you were saying, I think just trying to go for things, I think is really important. I know the Lake Forest Rec Center applies for tons of grants. I know they have assistance, but they're like throwing a lot of darts out, and then they end up getting a lot. I mean, I think they were 40 million in grants they got last year. So I think the more you apply for these, I think your success rate is higher. I'm sure you're going to get one of them. So I don't know if we're like shutting the door to an opportunity. I don't know if ACOM gave you any recommendations of their thoughts, if it's better now that we have the hazard part of the application process, if it makes that better. Because we're working with the village and now we're kind of an intergovernment agreement and that changes the application process.
What kind of feedback do we get when they turn us down?
Well, it primarily has been the last couple of years. It's just that, you know, the fact that we have not been part of that hazard mitigation plan. You know, I've talked with AECOM and because the village has adopted it and we're, you know, within at least part of the village, you know, to still work for the park district, and that hasn't worked the last couple of years. So when I initially talked to AECOM this year, they thought they were actually saying, well, maybe we shouldn't apply because this is the same thing. And after I had talked to George Russell, and we talked about this idea of maybe doing it as the sub-applicant, having the village be the applicant. And I went back to AECOM and they said, well, yeah, maybe it would work better that way than if we could do it as a sub-applicant. So then they kind of turned around and said, okay, well, then maybe that would work better this year.
Okay. But we would still have to have the village then do this in a 2-week turnaround as the applicant, or we do all the footwork and then the village reviews and then applies.
Yeah, I don't think that there would be
I'm
much.
Go ahead, I'm sorry.
Sorry, I don't think there'd be much for the village that they necessarily, I mean, they have to approve, you know, the project and the application through them, but you know, I don't know how much there'd be for them to review.
I guess my question at the end of the day, if we did get the grant, we have $1 million to flip on it because we have 2 years to come up with $1 million, correct?
Right. Yeah. So that is part of the concern, you know, that if the pool project does go forward and even with, you know, with the grant, you know, that's, you know, more like $2 million, you know, in financing there, and then another $1 million for the beach. You know, the beach has been a little bit less pressing because it's been lower lake level, you know, water level in the lake in recent years. So that's made it a little less urgent as far as getting this erosion control work done. But that would be a concern to have both of the projects move forward with similar timing, that it's really going to kind of keep us in that same position that the park district was in, where, you know, it's really kind of using all of its available finances. And, you know, we've been climbing out of that situation, with this board and with the staff and a lot of good work that's been done for the past several years. So the finances are getting much better. But this kind of, puts us, in that, kind of keeps us in that similar position for a while.
So this doesn't need to read, is anyone?
No, this is just an update. Yeah, this is really, this is just an update as to where everything is, but it just sounds like I agree with Emily from the sense of the more darts you throw out there, the better you're gonna get something. But I'm just, the timing on this and the coordination that needs to be done with the village and the expense involved is maybe something that may be better to look at next year. If you said this this FEMA BRIC grant is available annually, right?
Yes.
Okay. Okay.
I think I'd have to go with that as well.
Yeah.
For the same reasons, until we have a real opportunity to look at our finances and really say, okay, we got this money, this is how we want to do it, this is what we want to do.
And how to best coordinate this.
And not go to the cost and.
Maybe come up with a full grant calendar for, 2024. So we know, like, in this month we're applying for this, in this month we're applying for this, we plan it out, ahead, so it's not like, oh God, we have 2 right now and we have to pay for both of the, find Eric's work on both of them. That might make more sense.
And as you said, Jennifer, this is not a grant that's, flashing in neon lights, Lakeville Park District, this is a great grant. It's really maybe not even border, maybe on the other side of the border. And
All right, so this is not a vote, this is only a discussion. So thank you for the update on that. Anything further? No? Okay. Recreation phone application approval.
Yes, so a couple of things. First of all, every commissioner should have the proposal, the agreement from Acton. So we've discussed this quite a bit. I'll keep it as short as possible. Staff has been working with Acton on a potential app for the Park District. And after research and then staff attending a demo and then staff attended another demo, at least Director Beeler and myself and Commissioner Lane and Commissioner Walsh attended a demo and it seemed it was positive. And then I believe everybody had, did you get an opportunity to see the demo, the rest of the commissioners? Yeah. Okay, I wasn't sure, I know there was some difficulties trying to log on. So we went back from the last meeting and from the feedback, Director Beeler and myself asked our rep if we could have a 3-tier agreement, and that was for $6,000, $8,000 in the second year and $10,000 in the third year. The representative came back on Friday and told Director Beeler and I we could have it for $6,000 in perpetuity. So actually less than what we asked them for with the 3-tier. And so the staff is recommending that we go forward with the phone application with an annual fee of $6,000 with the potential of a 5% increase each year in perpetuity. I don't know if Commissioner Lane or Commissioner Walsh want to add anything to the phone application. I know we discussed
Why did they come back with less?
There isn't. They don't have that many users right now.
They want a flagship user to use, because
Yeah.
I noticed that when they were showing us, they had like, and especially especially in this area, they only had the one, and they're showing us someone in North Carolina, so that makes sense.
Yeah, and so they said, yeah, and he had one request. If we do this agreement, that and John and I both had mentioned to him, only if we feel this is a success, with a phone application and I hear back from the residents, we will be a reference for them, and we will be one to help, spread that word to other park districts to, this is an app that is very user-friendly. So that was kind of the ask. They were looking for our help.
This is an NLI deal for the
Yeah.
district.
Yeah.
NIL, sorry.
Hey, Jim, this is Sue. There were a couple things on the demo. I guess really one thing, little concerned about that whole issue with the beach and the Lake Forest as resident and in some things and not others. That might be a problematic. But I guess my real question is, have you had any customers look at the app or use it or be critical of it or critique it?
Well, they have to create the app for users. That's why we did the demo with the commissioners. So there's not a specific one that has been created for us. They won't do that unless we sign an agreement to actually use the application. Are there concerns about the Lake Forest and Lake Bluff? We're trying to resolve those. A big part of it is that they are reciprocal on program fees, so they're considered residents in our system. That's regardless of the app. So with the app or without the app, we're still trying to resolve that so we can do online memberships with the pool.
And Sue, I would consider myself, a fairly avid user of various apps for various, clubs and things that I use. And, the way the demo took us through it, I felt like I, was kind of using it. Like I could see the profile, and so I could see my day, and I could see how I would go in and sign up for things and access other things. So I felt, kind of like I don't know if you did, Emily, but like we were representative of that. And staff had a demo, so staff has seen how to use it.
Yeah, there's a problem I look at this in a few phases. They told us it would take 4 to 6 weeks to get this, to get it out there to the public. I would probably first, depending on how easy everything is to set up, we would start with programming classes, and then I would say by January 1st, hopefully we get everything resolved for the pool memberships, so we can do the online memberships for fitness, for pool. Because they are you don't see behind the scenes, but there's 2 areas that guest services works with when you register patrons. Memberships is done what's called flex registration, and then classes and programs are just activities. That's extremely simple, the program and classes. The flex registration is a little bit more challenging. We actually, for those that don't know, we began to take online registrations already for the first time ever with after school care. That is in the flex registration system, and we've never done that before. So we've been trying to really utilize ActiveNet to its full capacity, but there are some challenges within there, the software, but I think it can be resolved. That was amazing that we were able to do that with after school care.
Kim, is there any way you can give us a cost benefit analysis where you could really put a monetary benefit on having this app?
I think for $6,000, I think it's a major benefit for the residents.
The marketing opportunities alone, I think are phenomenal. And I think it would allow for more easy, like you said, with the Flex memberships, it would allow for more easily, I think there's a problem right now with quarterly memberships and monthly memberships at the fitness center, and that might make that easier to kind of have a opt out to not renew. I think there's things like that too that would recoup costs quickly.
Yeah. This, and by the way, the $6,000 is only through September 30th. So if we don't do it, it's off the table. I think the benefits outweigh the $6,000.
So this will save staff time because of people being able to register this.
Oh, yes, I think it's gonna reduce, in the beginning, it'll take a lot of staff time just to get training and get this set up, but it's gonna reduce the guest services registration time through this process, because they won't be coming in and handling paperwork. They'll be doing, hopefully, majority of this online. I mean, the younger parents with preschool and the enrichment classes, after-school care, all that's gonna get reduced.
So, and I think, Jim, I would just add to that, I think a lot of younger people, what I would call younger people, probably under 40, want to be able to do just about everything on their phone and expect to be able to these days, because you can. And that's one of the things I know that Commissioner Raymore has brought up before, how can we do registration, on your phone? We can't currently with the software that we have. And this will allow us to be able to do that. It's hard to say how much, will that increase enrollment or ease, the staffing, but it certainly, I think, will be a major convenience factor that our residents expect and would, certainly utilize. So that's going to be a big benefit. The app itself really mirrors our software, our ActiveNet software. They integrate and work together, so you already have your account set up. I know we already talked about a lot of this last week, but if you have your ActiveNet account, it will transfer into the app, and you won't need to create another account, and it'll be, pretty seamless. So I think it's going to be a major convenience factor, and will eventually really be utilized by our residents and helpful to staff with messaging and notifications, etc.
Well, for the number of people that ask me, is the beach closed today? What are the hours? I can imagine what you guys get at the help desk. So that alone, the way you can blitz out communication about changes and closures and cancellations, I think that'll be very, very beneficial. I would just ask Jim, and I'm sure you're going to do it, that you get some sort of feedback after you've gotten it implemented to see how it's working for you.
And I think the other benefit here is that this pricing, we don't have to lock into 3 years. We don't have to lock into 5 years. This is, each year pricing with a possible up to 5% increase, which is normal. So we're only doing a year at a time. If it's not working at the end of a year, we don't need to renew it. We would certainly evaluate that. I remember that Commissioner Lane talked about, how much it's, we would want to evaluate how much is being used and utilized by our members and by our residents. So, those are all things we'd want to take a look at and evaluate through the year and decide how do we want to renew for another year.
I'll give a good example of a cost benefit just for a particular day on a notification. So junior golf, when it started, we did have a rain day, and communication was coming into our office, hey, is it canceled? Is it canceled? And I did not receive communication from the PGA, from Illinois PGA. They didn't include me in that communication, so I'm handling these phone calls, and I wasn't knowing that it was canceled. If I had this app and everybody was on this app, I could send out a notification, class is canceled today due to rain. That would have saved my time at least an hour to 2 hours that particular day just for junior golf. And imagine all the phone calls that our staff has to put out when we do have cancellations that happen. This will reduce some of that. What is nice, and I know Commissioner Walsh and Commissioner Lane got to see this too, is that we'll be able to see what the users actually utilize. So we'll be able to share that data, and as the reviewer had mentioned, this is a year agreement, and if it doesn't work out, we can back out, and we can find someone else or not go with it.
And I was just looking back through like the, ACH and payables too, so timekeeping, which I assume is our time clock, is $5,000 a year. And that's just, the employees clocking in and out. This is an app that's gonna affect everybody. It's gonna touch everybody in the community. And I think it's we just need to take it, on a cost per use basis, the $6,000 for all the users of this, it's nothing, if you just think of it that way.
All right.
Now, can I just mention something? Your contract, maybe I'm missing something, but your contract has an effective date as of June 30th, 2015.
I think they just, when they had written the agreement, they gave us an agreement before. We'll make sure that that gets changed. Yeah, that's easy.
I mean, the 2 hours you saved is $6,000 right
Any other discussion? Could I have a motion to approve the active net recreational phone application contract?
So moved.
Second.
Roll call?
Commissioner Greenfield?
Yes.
Commissioner Lane?
Yes.
Commissioner Raymore? Commissioner Walsh?
Yes.
Commissioner Weber?
Yes.
President Dillon?
Yes. On to the Recreation Center window project replacement.
Thank you, and good evening, Commissioners. As mentioned in my memo, the original section of this building, located just to the north of this room, was built in 1973 and included as part of the design 3 sliding glass doors in what are now used as staff offices. The doors are original to the building, which puts them at the 50-year mark, and they have lost their ability to insulate and keep staff comfortable in the summertime and the wintertime, and puts a strain on the HVAC system. Staff will have to use space heaters just to keep their offices at a comfortable temperature to work. We budgeted for $45,000 in the budget based on an estimate last year to replace those with brick halfway up the wall and include a 4x4 window for staff to be able to at least get some sunshine and look outside and see what the weather looks like. But this would increase the efficiency of the offices, the energy efficiency, the load on the HVAC system, and allow staff to operate in a comfortable environment. So my ask is that we approve the budget number of $47,000. This was a slight increase due to just labor and materials costs have gone up, as we all know. The original budgeted number was $45,000 last year. So I ask that the board approve the $47,150 to replace the 3 sliding glass windows with 3 energy efficient windows and brick facades to match the existing building.
So we a couple thousand more than what we had budgeted for this year. Okay.
So you won't have to put like saran wrap anymore?
Correct. No more saran wrap on the windows for Jim.
Oh my
And
God.
if, Jim, can you tell us what your office, the temperature is in the morning? I mean, I know it's below 50 degrees some of the mornings.
Yeah, so cold winter day would be around 47, 48.
For circulation.
You've got all the prevailing wage and all the rest of the information. Roll call, please, Marshall.
Commissioner Greenfield?
Yes.
Commissioner Lane?
Yes.
Commissioner Raymore?
Yes.
Commissioner Walsh?
Yep.
Commissioner Weber?
Yes.
President Dillon?
Yes. All right. Building security enhancements.
Good evening, Commissioners.
Good evening again.
So as mentioned and outlined in my memo to the board, we budgeted $25,000 in budget for this year to include some security enhancements to the doors, particularly in the preschool wing and in the community room. 4 of the fobs would be for safety of the children, both during preschool hours and for ARC. The other 2 would be for the access in the rear of the building for staff to get in and out in a timely manner with the mechanical room. We've also included some upgrades to security at the park maintenance facility, which currently has no burglar alarm security system or security cameras. Keeping in mind that we have over $500,000 worth of equipment in that facility with no security, we thought it would be a good idea to budget for some sort of at least burglar alarm for motion sensing and that kind of thing. So we reached out to our current supplier that handles all of our security systems in-house, which is ADS, Alarm Detection Systems. They provided us a quote for service, which comes in under budget and allows us to provide the needed upgrades to the doors, adding fobs to the doors.
And it looks like there's an uptick then on our monthly service fee over a year, is that right?
Correct, there is an uptick in the service fee. That includes any repairs due to wear and tear, failure, or a technician to come out. So all the services covered through this contractual service.
Any questions or discussions from the board? Seeing as none, a motion, if someone would like to make that, to approve the installation of the recommended security control fobs and burglar alarm at the Blair Park Recreation Center and Park Maintenance Building for a total of $21,181.
Shouldn't that be 23,000?
That's a good question. Noah, is there?
That is a typo.
reason why-
That is a typo. I do apologize. It is 23.
23, excuse me, I'm reading the action, and it should be, okay, so,
23,181.
I'll do that.
Yeah.
Okay. And the second?
Second.
Thank you. Marcia, if you could do a roll call on this, please.
Commissioner Greenfield,
Yes.
Commissioner Lane,
Yes.
Commissioner Raymore,
Yes.
Commissioner Ross,
Yes.
Commissioner Webb,
Yes.
President Taylor.
Yes. Next, we have a park maintenance fleet vehicle purchase.
Hi, me again. As mentioned in my memo, we originally consulted a 10-year capital plan, and we had included $60,000 in this year's budget to replace the beach cleaner. During recent evaluations of our fleet, my mechanic, Ed Ehlert, had noticed that there has been an increase in the amount of rust that has taken place with a truck 106, which is it is slated for replacement in year 2025 as far as our capital plan is concerned. However, due to the wear and tear on that vehicle and the importance that it is to our fleet, would like to move that up in the timeline of the capital replacement and move the beach cleaner out. We feel that that beach cleaner will be able to survive at least another year, or at least into next year since beach season's over, to at least evaluate that capital replacement. Taking into account certain rumblings that have been happening with Ford and GM going on strike and the possible not availability of fleet vehicles next year or the year after, depending on how this shakes out. We've been able to find a fleet vehicle in stock at a dealer that could be delivered within the next 4 to 6 weeks rather than a longer time frame. We normally would go through the state purchase program through the state of Illinois since they get the best bid price. But that dealer who currently has the contract through the state will not be able to provide a truck for 6 to possibly 9 months. The dealer we went with has had the state contract in the past and was willing to match the state bid price, which is the best price possible for us to achieve. And like I said, has the vehicle in stock at this time. We can receive it right away in fiscal year 2023.
Now, no, this is $15,000 above the budget for the replacement in 2025.
That's right.
You know, some of these other things we've been voting on tonight haven't been so big. But this, and then you've got other trucks in there that are also slated to be replaced. And they're also priced at roughly the same level as truck 106, that you've got them in the budget also $37,000 or $38,000. can we go through those? I mean, I'm not saying right now, and figure out what those trucks are actually gonna cost? Because that, right here, we've got $15,000. I don't know what the trade-in value on the other trucks is, and that includes $8,500 for trade-in.
Right.
So you may not get $8,500 for these other trucks. When you go to trade them in, and then we're talking about, even more money, over $20,000.
Yes.
Difference. I think that's something we really need to sit and look at. I'm not questioning the need to replace trucks or the need to replace this truck now. But we start looking at, an additional 100,000 or more in capital costs over the next 5 years, which is a substantial amount of money.
Absolutely. And to your point, Superintendent Playhouse, Executive Director Beeler, and myself have actually discussed that and sitting down and going over the 10-year capital plan and reevaluating the numbers that are currently in there based off of information like this that leads us to believe that there are certain capital items that have gone up in price since that last 10-year capital plan was initiated, and reevaluating all pricing just to make sure whether it's in line or needs to be readjusted accordingly.
So where do we stand on the beach cleaner?
The beach cleaner? So
Price point, you want to say?
Price point, we're still actually very close to the price point. We're about $10,000 over. It's existing, the $60,000 in the budget is closer to 70. So we're not too far off, luckily, I would say, considering that it could be much, much worse. But we will take that into account when we did 2024 budget.
After this one, when's the next, I guess, vehicle that's up for trade-in, or when's the next time we need to actually get a new one?
I believe 26 or 27 was when it was originally slated for the next fleet vehicle to be replaced.
Okay. Happen to know if it's just like one or two, or I guess my point is, like, should we be pulling any expenditures forward? Are there any? Is there any equipment that you're just like, it's holding on by dear life?
Truck 106 was the one that we moved forward particularly because of that. After that would be the beach cleaner. We did evaluate that. After that, there's probably another fleet vehicle that we tried to space out in the 10-year capital plan so that not too many of these items hit. We didn't hit 3 trucks in 1 year, so it's $150,000 out of pocket. We tried to space them out and evaluate based off of usage, mileage, which mileage is one thing because it's not that much of this move around, but whether it's a plow trucks take a lot more wear and tear just due to transmissions and plows and things like that. So we take all that into account and try to space it out accordingly so that we do not have too many capital items hitting all at once. I would say, like I said, the beach cleaner is probably the next on our list, which is another big ticket, and then after that will be another fleet vehicle within a couple of years. But those are really the top end of our capital replacement prices.
Yeah, I guess I would just be on the lookout for a good deal on one of those things.
Absolutely.
I think you'd find a good deal. I can speak only for myself, but I would be receptive to point something forward if it was potentially a good deal.
And we have done that in the past. We did replace a fleet vehicle in 2020 that was a used vehicle, but it was an excellent buy as far as mileage and so on and so forth. So I'm not opposed to a used vehicle or something that adds limited wear and tear in order to help save on the capital budget.
And on the horizon is also a little bit further research into leasing of commercial vehicles as well.
Yeah, and I would just say, looking at is truck 101, which is scheduled for 2023. I think our fleet is recommending it about 10 years, barring any major problems, replacement on our schedule. But that's one of the things. Again, superintendents, Mock and Pettinghouse, myself talked about this, evaluating this closer. To your point, Commissioner Greenfield, this and updating these numbers, but also having our fleet mechanic a little bit more involved with the process this time. I think that's where we didn't have him as involved the last time. So I think that that's going to help us benefit and maybe get, drill on these numbers a bit more.
All right. If I could have a motion to approve Executive Director Taylor to purchase a Ford F-250 Super Duty from Bob Redding's Ford in the amount not to exceed $51,968. Let's do it.
Is that a so
Let's do it.
Man,
I'm gonna have a second to it, but let's do it. A second for the motion.
Second.
Thank you. Roll call, Marcia, please.
Commissioner Greenfield,
Yes.
Commissioner Lane,
Yes.
Commissioner Rainbow,
Yes.
Commissioner Walsh.
Yes.
Commissioner Weber,
Yes.
President Brewer.
Yes. And finally, we have the last item on our new business, the declaration of surplus property approval.
This was possibly going to be moved if the last one didn't go through. But this is to declare the current truck that we're trading in as surplus property in order to allow us to trade it in for the new truck. I humbly request your approval to get rid of it.
Can I make a motion then to approve ordinance number 2023D for the declaration of surplus personal property and authorization for the sale, trade-in, or disposal?
So moved. Second.
Roll call, please.
Commissioner Greenfield,
Yes.
Commissioner Lane,
Yes.
Commissioner Rainbow,
Yes.
Commissioner Walsh.
Yes.
Commissioner Weber,
Yes.
President Brewer.
Yes. That concludes that item on our agenda. Any written communications under community comments or correspondence?
None.
None. Seeing none, we would like to move into executive session tonight.
I'd like to be going to executive session for the appointment, employment, compensation, discipline, performance, or dismissal of an employee pursuant to section 2C1 of the Open Meetings Act.
A second, please.
Second.
Roll call, please.
Commissioner Greenfield,
Yes.
Commissioner Lane,
Yes.
Commissioner Rainbow,
Yes.
Commissioner Walsh.
Yes.
Commissioner Weber,
Yes.
President Brewer.
Yes.